Our knowledge is missing or deemed demonic because of them. The Evil Side of Western Libraries, an essay on epistemic violence. It's clear we need a new world, a new system. But in order to do that, we need to question our ways of being, aka ontology. We need to question our ways of knowing, aka epistemology. And we need to question the design and purposes of institutions, aka teleology. Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to shatter your assumptions? I'm not sure, because it may trigger you to learn that the mainstream assumption of libraries, for instance, libraries being a safe and benevolent institution, is not 100% correct. By exposing the relationship between librarianship, colonialism, and white supremacy, we can all begin a much needed conversation about this issue and continue to develop conversations on how we're going to design a new future, a future where equity and justice have won, and where historical, systemic, and structural violence has ended, where oppressive institutions have been dismantled, and where Indigenous wisdom is used to shape and create new systems. It may come as a shock to you that the library, often seen as this neutral and benevolent institution, requires significant reimagining. Many of you watching this may have very fond memories of visiting libraries when you were younger, or maybe still visiting them now. Let me go and introduce myself properly before I launch into why we need to question libraries. Because what I'm saying comes from lived experience. I used to be an academic librarian. I did a master's degree in race and resistance in 2018, and then I did a master's in library and information studies in 2020. I held various roles in academic libraries. My last librarian role, I was an academic librarian specializing in global Black studies and fashion. As many of you know, I left that profession, and if you don't know, then watch the video Libraries Are Toxic after this video, where I detail the microaggressions that pushed me out of the profession. This is something that I experienced. However, I'm not an anomaly, and if you don't believe me, I will also link my Substack article where other Black female librarians describe similar experiences that I was forced to go through. Librarianship is dominated by middle-class white women. Around 82 to 96% of librarians in America and the global north identify as white. Of course, this means that racism from library colleagues is commonly experienced by librarians, library assistants, library technicians of color. It takes many forms. But the epistemic violence is why I'm arguing that libraries are in need of radical reimagination. It's a deeper, more serious issue than just improving the diversity of librarians. We are all familiar with the phrase, knowledge is power, and we often view it as a positive term. This is a one-dimensional view though, because it hides the reality that, yes, knowledge is power. Knowledge is controlled, owned, shaped, and influenced by power. What is passed on to us as knowledge, aka epistemology, is colonial knowledge. And did you know that Western libraries began this process of removing indigenous and diverse ways of knowing? They erased systematically the knowledge held in pre-colonial societies, indigenous forms of knowledge preservation, knowledge production. Pre-colonial societies, for example, they had a great importance placed on oral traditions and other valid forms of communication. Indigenous wisdom, for example, was often passed down through family lines, secret societal rituals, divination, folklore, stories, hair. Personally, I have Indigenous American in my DNA. However, a lot of this knowledge was destroyed by colonialism with the help of Western libraries. meaning that aspects of my identity will forever be out of reach to me because the vocabulary and knowledge needed to access the truth has been systematically and epistemically destroyed by colonialism through Western libraries. Western libraries played a key role in epistemic destruction. Libraries were established by European colonial powers with specific concentration on written materials to dismantle the local knowledge, the oral traditions, the folklore, the knowledge that have been passed down for generations. Suddenly, books were encouraged as the only form of valid knowledge. And I think it's important to highlight that I'm not discrediting books as being valid forms of knowledge, but seeing them as the only valid form of knowledge. Seeing Western knowledge, civilized Western knowledge and culture as the only valid form of knowledge. And this very much continues today. Remember, I worked in academia, and so I know that even today, academic institutions and consequently the libraries continue to favour and place emphasis on written materials over other forms of knowledge production. There's a dominance of English-speaking Western scholars, largely from heteronormative, cisgender, male, white European backgrounds, which clearly reinforces systematic othering and exclusion created by colonialism. Power defines knowledge. Power writes the books. Power builds, designs, and defines the educational institutions, these holders of knowledge, such as libraries. There's more that we need to think about, more that we need to question. For example, did you know that the acquisition of library resources is also historically intertwined with global epistemic oppression? For example, modern library collections often include artifacts and documents which were acquired through colonial exploitation and plunder. Indeed, I have worked in an academic library that prided itself on having one of the earliest copies of the Quran, a document which was ultimately stolen by a British colonialist visiting the UAE. Furthermore, the way a lot of these resources are classified in libraries is very problematic, embedded with colonialist biases. Users of libraries know that library books have a unique barcode on the spine, which is how they're found by users, because these barcodes are how libraries catalogue these books and put them in the library system. A lot of libraries use the Dewey Decimal Classification System and the Library of Congress Classification System. However, these cataloguing systems reflect Eurocentric biases because of who designed them. Look up who Dewey was. In the past, topics such as LGBTQ+, was classified as abnormal psychology, perversion, derangement as a social problem, and even as a medical mental disorder. Remember, in the show notes of this video, I have so many different resources that confirm and back up what I'm saying. In the last 10 years or so, it was only recently that the Library of Congress ceased using the term illegal aliens to describe non-citizens who have entered the United States without authorization. Legal aliens. Don't get me wrong, it is of course undeniable that public access to information via institutions like libraries is necessary for creating a new world. We need to encourage critical thinking, which is the point of this video. And libraries do provide this by helping us gain access to knowledge and education and diverse perspectives. This is why in the United States, for example, we've seen book banning. Similarly in the UK, which further reduces communities' access to information that can surely help us to liberate our minds and consciousness. Yet, despite this access to information, remember, information is not neutral. Decisions such as whose words get to be published, who decides how this topic is written, in what format is this topic written, whose voice gets to have a platform, whose voice gets to be amplified, who is seen as an expert in the field. These decisions are all shaped by power dynamics, power imbalances. Therefore, libraries aren't neutral. They are part of a wider structure that needs to at least be discussed if we are going to create a new future. So the next time you walk into a library, remember, they're not neutral institutions, neutral spaces. Ask more critical questions, such as whose knowledge is missing, whose knowledge methods are missing, How many non-white library staff can you see? And if you do see them, question, are they truly happy? Are they truly safe? Can you see any signs that show the library space is being designed to promote intersectional ways of being and knowing of multiple intersectional communities? Libraries and library work is clearly political. And whilst many of you listening to this essay may have had pleasant experiences in libraries in the past or even recently, I encourage you to question libraries. Because if we continue to just view institutions such as libraries as neutral rather than historically flawed, historically an institution that has made my Indigenous knowledge demonic or has erased it, we do ourselves a disservice. We need to question different ways of being, different ways of knowing, if we're truly going to design a new world and create a social revolution. Thank you for listening. My name is Naomi. I realized that we can't create a new world or a social revolution until we revolutionize ourselves, our thinking, our personal relationship to knowledge, truth, and power. If you want to support the movement, hype this video up, like, subscribe, comment, share it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.